Yeah, I think for people that follow Tesla closely, which is something that we cover obviously a lot on this channel, I think the next 3 months are going to be some of the most, let's say, chance for explosive coverage of the company. Some of the most exciting products and the products that will define the next 10 years of the company. All of those will be happening somewhere between the next 3 to 9 months. We're going to gain so much insight between FSD launching in Austin in June, the cheaper models for the car, which are going to give a runway for understanding what kind of TAM they're trying to get into total addressable market in the coming years. Then you have the manufacturing of Optimus robot that's supposed to hit 5,000 units this year, and it's going to start doing hopefully some useful stuff in the company. All these things are starting to become real, and people are going to be able to use them outside of the bot, unless you're a Tesla employee, which I'm sure you'll be able to interface with them by the end of this year in some respect.
Welcome to the Gigacast. I'm Gav here with Sawyer, Omar, and Farzad. And today we are talking about Tesla's dog bleep delivery numbers that came out and the stock's reaction to them. Let's get right into the data. Farzad, could you kick us off?
Yeah, so the delivery numbers from Tesla, as expected, were poor. Now they came in at the lower bound of the expectation. What was it, 334,000? 336. So you can see the breakout there. Thank you, Evan, producer Evan. Model 3 and Y, 323, and the other models, which include Cybertruck. And I think this is like a very interesting one we might want to talk about. 12,000 for SX and Cybertruck. Now, what's interesting about this delivery release, though, is that energy numbers year over year for Q1 for energy was more than double of the previous year Q1, which is a great trend for that. But of course, when the stock market opened, the market was obviously focusing on the delivery numbers. Now it's what is it, 12 Central right now, 1 p.m. Eastern. If we pull up the stock chart, Tesla stock was at minus 5%, basically when the stock market opened, and now it's plus 4.3%. So it has almost a 10-point swing in the same day from that delivery number. Now, about an hour or two ago from recording this podcast, we also had a news item that came out that said President Trump told his cabinet, or part of his cabinet, that Elon will be stepping back from his role in DOGE in the coming weeks. Dude, Evan's on fire this morning, bro. He was waiting for this moment. This is from Sawyer Merritt. If you don't follow him, Sawyer is one of the most handsome people I've ever met. Sawyer Merritt, make sure you follow him on X.
Subscribe.
So yeah, and subscribe for sure. And so this people are thinking this is probably one of the main reasons why the stock has made such a huge jump from where it was. Now, what's interesting about that is that even before these news broke, the stock was kind of flat. So it recovered from that minus 5% that it opened the day with, and it went back to almost flat, like minus 1%. And so there's a lot of like crazy things going on here. And I'm going to try not to hog up the mic here much longer, but I do wonder if the broader markets have finally moved on, as a lot of folks that have been following the story very closely with Tesla, they finally moved on from trying to nail these quarterly numbers. The key thing to keep in mind with this quarter is that there's a huge changeover in the Model Y line. They went from the old legacy Y, I guess, to the new refresh version. And all three regions basically in the world where they produce this car, they have to shut down the line and re-ramp it with this new model. And this is likely what caused a huge part of that, let's say, delivery miss or delivery guidance much lower. So that's been going on. But then on top of that, you have the noise from Elon's politics. And is that impacting demand? You have the violence against Tesla owners and Tesla stores in the US. So is that making people apprehensive? So there's all this noise going on. But the market's like, nah, we're good. We feel like the company's in good enough shape, I guess. And they might be focusing more on the AI prospects. So things like FSD launching the Robotaxi network launching in Austin in June this year. You also have developments with the Optimus robot. You have cheaper models coming out for the company this quarter. So in the next 3 months, we should start seeing cheaper models coming out. Nobody still knows what the hell they are. So anyway, very interesting to see one of the worst let's say quarter over quarter drops in Tesla's history from a delivery number, which is something that the market used to freak out about. And now the market's like, okay, it's okay. We'll give you you go up 5% today. We believe in your long-term prospects. That's what I think. So anyway, I'll stop talking because I'm sure Sawyer and Omar have much more interesting things to say.
I got a few takeaways. Obviously, Wall Street consensus for this Q1 was about 377,000 vehicle deliveries. I think the whisper number was closer to 350. But despite those low expectations, Tesla still underperformed those whisper numbers at 336. So that's not great. Obviously, it's sort of up in the air. A lot of people are debating how much is it due to brand damage issues because of the Elon getting into politics. How much of it is due to the new Model Y line changeover from the old one. I think a lot of it is that there wasn't inventory. They just didn't have enough to sell. But I also want to touch on a couple other things. Model S and X and Cybertruck sales, like, were objectively terrible. Like, yeah. And yes, there was like, I think a multiple week stop sale for the Cybertruck in Q1 due to the Cant Rail recall. But Cybertruck started production like almost 1.5 years ago at this point, and they delivered, it looks like maybe 7,000 units in Q1. And I know the starting price is at 80,000. That is high, but you would still expect sales to be higher than this. And I think Cybertruck pricing needs to come down. They need to launch the rear-wheel drive version. I think that'll help to some degree. We'll have to see what happens with the EV credit. That would hurt sales to some degree if Tesla and the whole EV market loses that. Model S and X, I mean, they're dated at this point. They're a bit long in the tooth. It's been almost 4.5 years since Tesla unveiled the most recent refresh of those. And I think it's time for a new refresh. I know Lars has sort of hinted at this is coming in at some point in the near to medium term future. I think it needs to be more than just a cosmetic one. I hope they bring exterior, interior, internal changes. I hope they bring like some of the next generation platform pieces into it, because I think steer by wire, maybe 48 volt, that'd be nice to see. Make them more premium. Also, I think the interior is too close to the 3 and the Y. I think that's one of the biggest reasons people aren't buying them, is because the new Model Y interior, if anyone who sat in it, is very, very nice. Big premium upgrade versus the old version. Yep. And so it's very close to what the current Model X offers. So is it really worth $30,000 extra or whatever it's going to be for a dated Model X versus the new Y? I'm not so sure about that. Evan, I think if you could pull up that chart of my chart that I made of Tesla's energy storage deployments in Q1, those were up 156% year over year. And this was their second best quarter ever. This is Tesla's highest margin product right now. And the company's new Megapack factory in Shanghai is just starting to ramp up right now. So that should continue to grow. This is really impressive growth on Tesla Energy's part, considering most of this is just coming from Tesla's Lathrop, Lathrop factory in California. And yeah, I guess the last thing I would maybe touch on is, Rivian also reported their Q1 delivery number today. They delivered about 8,600 vehicles, I believe. And that was down 36% year over year. And I know that Rivian had sort of guided to that, because I think last year in Q1, they pushed a lot of the Rivian van deliveries towards the end of the year. So that sort of, I think that sort of messes up with the delivery numbers. But regardless, Rivian's not selling as many R1Ts and R1S as I would expect they would at this point, even though I know the vehicle prices are high, but they're not even really selling more than the Cybertruck or the Model X that much, which is pretty shocking.
That's a very interesting piece of. So can you pull that back up, Evan, that Rivian number? And then I put something in the chat if you can do that in the background, I guess. So the reason why this is interesting is let's talk, if we talk about the whole brand damage dynamic, wouldn't Rivian be one of the biggest beneficiaries from people not buying Tesla vehicles? Yeah,
so like the Rivian R1T, which is not exactly a straight Cybertruck competitor, but it's an EV truck, a little bit smaller than the Cybertruck. But that starts at 70,000, I think. Cybertruck starts at 80,000, and obviously has it's a triangle shape, so it doesn't appeal to as many people probably. But also it's having a lot of brand image issues. Like the Cybertruck is a key target for a lot of these vandalism attacks these days. So if we see the registration numbers come out in Q1 and the Cybertruck still sold more than Rivian R1T despite all that, I mean, that doesn't look great for Rivian.
I kind of feel like, though, that's not the audience that would shift over there. I feel like if you have these truck owners, you have a large group of, the F-150s and that area. And then if people are getting the Cybertruck, I think it's because they're maybe an Elon fan, because they like specifically what Tesla's doing, because they want FSD. I don't feel like necessarily that Rivian truck is a direct substitute. I feel like there's kind of more one side or the other, and that truck's not really finding its target market.
Two things is, I think a lot of Rivian buyers and Tesla buyers are both lifestyle buyers. So in that respect, there is some crossover. But I think you are right to some degree. Like the Rivian is a little bit smaller, but most truck buyers in general are just lifestyle buyers, and they're both trucks. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is sizable. I do like the front headlight look on the Rivians, but
they look great.
It's a great car. I mean, it really is. If you've been in one, if you've spoken to the owners, like a lot of customers, and it is objectively a very, very good product. Rivian's biggest problem, though, is that they don't know how to make money with it. And even the Q4 number, even though they reached profitability, it was they had to do a little bit of a gamesmanship to try and move a lot of the credits forward to make that happen. And so in Q1, they're likely going to go back to being significantly not profitable. Yeah. So, we'll see. And I think there was another thing too, Sawyer, on the EV sales. Ford had some of their best EV sales altogether with the Mach-E. The Mach-E. I think Chevy sold a bunch of EVs as well.
GM had their best Q1 ever for EV sales. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is, that's twofold. Number one, the people that were how long were they saying the EV segment's dead? Now, all of a sudden, Legacy Auto is still growing theirs, right? But then the noise that's going to exist this quarter is look at Tesla, look at how much they've lost, like how much delivery momentum they've lost while everyone else is picking up. So here, this post from Sawyer, up 94% year over year on their
how many EVs they sell.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, like 20, 30,000. Dude, Hummer EV, 3,500.
Well, I was just saying, like, the amount of models that they have. I know they have different brands and stuff, but it's just, they have so many already.
Yeah.
Omar, do you got thoughts on these delivery numbers and the other data?
Yeah, so I woke up in the morning and I saw the delivery numbers, and, my first reaction was kind of shock. You had numbers out from people like Troy, who suggested about 355,000 deliveries. That in my mind would have been pretty disappointing given we had 386,000 deliveries last year. And that wasn't a great year either. I mean, Tesla's supposed to be this company that's just growing like crazy, right? We would see these delivery numbers and they'd be hitting new heights. And it does, I think worry anybody who cares about the company to see them delivering fewer vehicles than the previous year. But then you start to dig into the numbers a little bit. And I think there were, some things that were pretty interesting. So if you just look at production from Q4 to Q1 to try and gauge the impact of transitioning Model Y in 4 factories around the world at the same time, production was down by about 97,000 units. So if they had been able to produce as many units as just the previous quarter and sold them through, I think they could have actually grown year over year. When you look at delivery and production, they're delivering, more than 93% of the cars they produced in the quarter. The remaining 7% you can attribute to transit. So they're actually selling through quite a bit in terms of the cars they are able to produce. The Cybertruck number, I think a lot of people looked at that because, well, okay, you've got a Model Y changeover, but then how do you explain what's going on with the Cybertruck? But Cybertruck actually had a recall issue that resulted in a stop sale. I had a lot of people DMing me saying, hey, I bought my Cybertruck. They won't deliver it to me. Do you know what's going on? They had to fix all these issues before they delivered it. It's illegal to deliver a car with an outstanding recall issue. And then you look at some of these numbers, Ford F-150 Lightning did around 7,000 units. Rivian, looks like did around 8,000. And we can see from the recall notice that at the point of the recall notice, Tesla had delivered about 8,000 more Cybertrucks in the US compared to the previous quarter. So it looks like right now that despite the stop sale, Cybertruck actually was, again, the best-selling electric pickup truck in the United States, which is, I think, pretty interesting. I think what's really limiting this product is, as Sawyer said, price, the lower cost variants not being available. But as you can see from Rivian, political issues aside, it's just a tough time to be in that segment. Consumer confidence is low. People are worried about tariffs. They're not necessarily running out to get a 6-figure car with a, $1,000 a month payment right now. And introducing some of the lower cost versions, I think, can help. But that's, really, I think just a product of where it is in the lineup. I mean, it's the most expensive car they've got. I think it's honestly super underrated. It's a great product. But they do need to, I think, get the lower priced versions out to really capture that potential. They talked about installed capacity of 125,000 units. They did less than 40,000 units last year. Hopefully we see them get closer to their installed capacity. But the most interesting thing that was kind of subtle in the release was when they mentioned the date of the earnings call, they said, we're going to be delivering a company update. So I went back, I looked at Q4. They said quarterly.
Yeah.
You're right. They said quarterly earnings, usually. This time they said they're going to deliver a company update. Now, we've been talking for a long time about these new, more affordable models. I mean, they said they're going to be launching these in the first half of 2025. Here we are in Q2 2025.
Should be now.
It seems like that is potentially something we're finally going to hear about in 3 weeks when they do this company update. So I think the market is going to be interested in that as well.
Yeah, that if they announce the cheaper models during the earnings call, I think that's going to be a pretty. And I mean, I think it would be very smart for them to do that because, when you're going to have obviously bad numbers, bad meaning much lower than previous year or much lower than previous quarter from an earnings perspective. You, as a company, you want to do as much to stuff it with good news as you can so that investors walk away happy, right? Like, okay, I know why I'm invested in this company. But I do think, like specifically on Cybertruck. So I just picked up mine last week. I've had it for a week. We got the dual motor. We got an inventory one with the upgraded wheels. And
had you driven the Cybertruck much before that?
Sorry, one more time.
Had you driven the Cybertruck much before you got this vehicle?
Yeah, I had rented it on 2 different occasions. I've made content with it before, so I was familiar with the car for sure. But I think the thing that is so interesting about that vehicle, and obviously I'm going to be biased, I think it's Tesla's best car by far that they've made. By far.
Totally.
Its capability, it's unbelievable. So like the thing that really drove home for me the point, and again, like obviously biased, but I just want to go for a 2-minute rant here because I think Tesla could do so much more to get this vehicle in front of people so they can sell more. The fact that this thing can go off-roading on a 5-star trail, which I accidentally ended up myself in over the weekend. I almost got myself killed. And I was able to get this Cybertruck with 0 off-roading experience out of that trail. And then when I get on the highway after getting off that trail, I put on self-driving and it drives me home in the most plush ride I've ever been in. It has a ton of room. It has a ton of technology. It's super comfortable. Okay. And it costs about the same as a nicely spec'd F-150. I don't think like the value proposition of those vehicles is absolutely insane. And for Tesla to not be able to sell, let's say if Tesla's not able to sell out this year with the Cybertruck, they're doing something wrong because that truck should sell out every single year because we
know all these incredible features. Tesla needs to convey that better to the public.
Is this a marketing issue?
Partly. I mean, you could argue that they should do some advertising with this vehicle, but
no, but I've not seen really many outside of people like yourselves, right? Who the people that are following you are probably most of them already own Teslas in this area is hitting like the general public. I haven't seen these videos that you see on TV, right? For like, I don't know, but I have like the Santa Fe, right? The all new Santa Fe, right? It's drilled into my brain, like the car and everything. I've been in one time, but like, I feel like I know the inside and interior. They just don't have that for the Cybertruck.
I mean, it's not the company's DNA. I mean, for how many years has the company been around selling their product, and they just they rely on word of mouth and they rely on the product selling itself. What's interesting about the Cybertruck specifically is that this is by far Tesla's best product to sell itself. But if it doesn't sell through, I mean, there's 2 very legitimate issues with the truck potentially. One, it's way too polarizing. It looks too batshit crazy for too many people. And 2, people are afraid to associate with the Tesla brand because of Elon's politics. Right?
Every time the Cybertruck is in the news, it's like there's a negative connotation. Yeah.
Which is brutal. It's a brutal situation,
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, people say this, but at the same time, it's outselling the F-150. I mean, how many people predicted that?
The Lightning, yeah.
Yeah, the Lightning, of course, right.
But my point is, it should be selling 50 to 80% of the F-150 period in the States. because the value prop is 50%. Let's even just say 50% of the F-150 volume in the United States. And I know a lot of them are like for work trucks. I know a lot of them are like job site trucks. The other
most are
half,
lifestyle trucks. Most, even the gas one F-150, most are just lifestyle bikes. They don't use it for work.
They're grocery shoppers, and the one time that they own the vehicle, they could use the bet to carry some 2x4s. That person would be like, see, I told you we should have had an F-150. And it's they use the bet that one time.
It's like FSD. Like, you have to really experience it in person to understand it. I think the Cybertruck is like that. Most people have no clue what steer-by-wire is or 48 volts or any of that.
It's unbelievable. Like, I actually, Cybertruck, I like driving more than any other Tesla car, which is kind of crazy because it's such a huge bulker of a beast. But it just drives so well with that steer-by-wire. Anyway, I'm going to stop because, so we'll see. I mean, this year will be very telling. You know, I think there's rumors of China opening up as a market for Cybertruck. We'll see if that actually happens. If that happens, that thing probably sells like absolute insanity in China. And so we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah. Any other thoughts from anyone on the numbers, delivery numbers, data, pieces that came out? I know that, Farzad, you were having Evan look up the pickup truck sales.
Yes.
In Q1.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Can you pull that up, Evan? So I saw a post from Jeff Lutz on X. Maybe you can pull that up as well, Evan, after you pull up the Grok thing. So one of the things to keep in mind with the truck sales in the United States. So the question was, how many pickup trucks were sold in the US in Q1, and what are the days on inventory at the dealers?
Well, we don't know all the data yet, but yeah.
Yeah. So days on inventory at dealers, 80 to 110 days for full size, 50 to 70 days for mid-size. Now, so dealers usually want to be around 60 days or less. So 80 to 110 days for full size. These are going to be trucks that are going to be in the Cybertruck price range. So 70, 80,000 plus. So the dealers are having a tough time selling trucks in the United States because of the price point. And so if we we think of Cybertruck as a lifestyle vehicle, but it's also in that Cybertruck mold. It could be that, I forget who made this point earlier, Omar or Sawyer, but there are economic concerns around higher priced vehicles. And this has been a trend that has been happening in the auto market for the last year and a half, this sort of cyclical thing where people are shying away from buying really expensive cars, and then they're going to the more affordable vehicles, right? So I just wanted to highlight that dynamic too, because it's like, you know, we could sit here and say, well, Tesla has an issue with the Cybertruck, but it could also be that, listen, there's people just right now, they can't afford it. And it could also be that Tesla is not doing a good enough job making sure that people know this truck even exists. Or let's say they don't know how good it is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll ultimately know like what actual Cybertruck demand is once the price gets lowered. The rear-wheel drive comes out, then we'll have a clearer picture of, okay, how much broad appeal is there for this thing?
We'll know by Q4 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Cybertruck is definitely underestimated just because it's such an amazing product and people just look at it. They should spend some time in it. They should drive it. It's really a technology leader, from everything from power share to the steer-by-wire. It's just an incredible vehicle to have, an incredible vehicle to drive. I think it's the best Tesla, but at the same time, it's not looking like it's really going to be another Model Y, obviously. Maybe at full capacity, this thing could do 250,000 units, maybe 500,000 units would be amazing. But especially if they're not bringing it to international markets, I think it's kind of, when you compare it to something like the Model Y, every vehicle Tesla's ever launched has been bigger than the last, right? The Model S was bigger than the Roadster. The Model 3 was bigger than the Model S, and the Model Y was bigger than the Model 3. So even though it's the best-selling electric pickup truck, and I think pickups in general have been suffering from high rates, high prices, etc., there are, I think, a lot of opportunities to grow it, to get it in people's hands, and we'll have to see how they do. I think this is going to be one of the key areas people watch. But when you look at it in comparison to its peers, you can see that it's not necessarily that people don't like the looks. They're actually buying it more than other electric pickup trucks. But the segment in general, I think, is very challenged with the current economic environment.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. You sure? So I think So what now? What's on the flip side of this is like, yeah, we could lament Cybertruck, but in reality, Tesla as a company, 99% of its future potential is going to be FSD and the bot.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a point I was going to make. So let's say they come out with the rear wheel drive and even the all wheel drive comes down in price a little bit, but sales don't really grow all that much. Over the next 18 months, like Tesla's vehicles are going to get smaller, probably the more affordable model. If it's a truly different model, it's probably going to be a little smaller. We got the Cybercab. Everything's moving towards driverless. What is the future of the Cybertruck in that kind of world? Because to me, the Cybertruck doesn't have a place in the driverless world in the same way that, a Model Y or something else does. Yeah, people still want to haul stuff around in the bed and all that. But if sales don't increase, meaningfully over the next 12 months, what does the future of that vehicle look like?
Yeah, I actually kind of see it as a vehicle that's going to be really important in a driverless future. Really? I mean, at a point where you can just open your app and call a car, and you need to move a couch, you need to bring a TV home from Best Buy, call a Cybertruck, right? You need to bring some furniture home from IKEA. I think it'd be super useful. And then they've also got these plugs in the bed, right? So I always have thought about what you could build inside the Cybertruck just by plugging stuff into the bed and putting it into the Tesla network. You could have maybe some type of, pizza oven or a fridge or a heater. You could deliver food to people. Maybe you could put a high quality printer in the bed and deliver high quality prints to people. I think there's a lot that you could build on top of the Cybertruck that makes it really interesting once it's unsupervised.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like the Model S, Model X, and the Cybertruck combined have installed a current installed capacity of 225,000 units. They're currently doing less than 50,000 units a year of all three combined. That's not great. So they need to figure out how to increase demand for S and X. Obviously, that's probably just via a refresh coming at some point in the medium future or something. But for Cybertruck, I think that's, at least in the near term, getting that price down and bringing out the rear-wheel drive version, other variants.
Yeah, crazy stuff. I like your idea of people being able to call that Cybertruck, though, when they need to move something and they want it to self-drive. Cybertruck pulls up, Optimus hops out, loads your couch into the back of the Cybertruck.
Exactly.
Optimus is using the charging port to charge when it's not working.
I mean, think about it too. Yeah. Like the bot could literally just pop a squat in the bed. It doesn't need oxygen. It doesn't need like a livable condition. It can just sit in the bed along with the rest of the cargo, and then they close the tonneau, and then or it can just lie down or whatever, or lie down, whatever. There's so many different configurations. But I think the fundamental breakthrough here is, again, autonomy. It's these vehicles are now going to be 2 to 5 times more useful because you're removing the driver out of the equation and they can drive on their own. And so within that world and the amount of demand there's going to be for moving stuff for people from point A to point B, especially when the cost of that per mile thing is going to be half to a tenth of what it is today or less, right? The market just explodes. And so at that point, you worry less about how much did it cost to make the Cybertruck, and instead you worry about how many units do I have that can provide this. And at that point, it's any car that Tesla can sell at that point becomes useful. And the cost difference between a $25,000 Tesla and the $100,000 Tesla, that $80,000 cost difference, pales in comparison over the 10-year value that the car can provide as an autonomous vehicle, right? Now the company will have a forcing function to say, okay, we need to maximize the square footage in our factories. If they really want to maximize profit, they would say we need to optimize the manufacturing per square foot of the company to fit the form factor that's going to drive the most profit. And the likelihood for that is going to be the Cybercab and then the Semi. Like eventually, or some sort of like van thing. You need something that carries a lot and something that carries people exactly where they need to go, right? And so that becomes an equation. And so for me, it's like Cybercab for sure will fit that. And then Model Y for sure will fit that. But yeah, S, X, 3, Cybertruck should fit it as well because you can carry cargo. But like I would say the 3 is way more in jeopardy than the Cybertruck long term because you have the Cybercab and the Model Y. What's the point of the Model 3 in an autonomous world? Yeah,
we'll see.
I want to move us along a little. 2 things before we do so. First off, Can I get a quick table bang? Mic check, quick across the board. Everybody, just the audience. We heard that everyone likes these when we do these on YouTube. Quick table bang for your headphones. Also,
was I doing them earlier? I'm sorry if I was. I didn't even realize.
Just a little.
I got carried away. Sorry.
Sawyer, what did you, now that you have the Model Y, what did you name it?
The interim name is Breaking, obviously, naturally.
Yes.
I don't have an official name yet. Farzad, I know your name suggestion was Finally. Well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
But no,
Final E and the Y make it capitalized.
But no, I got it wrapped. I put some new wheels on it. I pick it up tomorrow, and I should have like the final unveiling sort of end of this week, early next week.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah, excited for that. Very nice. I saw the official Tesla account came in and gave you the congrats on getting it.
Yeah.
So showing some love, which is cool.
They made a great vehicle. I mean, it's incredible, that vehicle. It's no wonder. It's going to be the number one best-selling vehicle probably in the world again this year. If not this year, next year. Back
to back.
Yeah. My wife named my Cybertruck for me. She weirdo.
That fits.
Very fitting. Very fitting.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how Sawyer's perspective changes and just being one of the first people to have this new Model Y. I think it really is the star of their lineup and the product that's singularly going to drive growth this year more than anything else.
Yeah, and I know like we have a lot of FSD testers out on the West Coast. I know like Dirty Tesla Chris, he does it in the Michigan, sort of the middle of the country. So maybe I can be the East Coast, New Hampshire driver, and I'll give you guys some perspectives on the winter side.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Covering all our bases. Okay, we had a very big story, maybe not so big if you've been following along, but big enough, I think, that it moved the stock today, that came out from Politico. If we're able to share this one, Evan, and dive into the details here. So, Sawyer, you tweeted it out, so I'll turn it over to you to share. Yeah,
so basically, there was a report from Politico citing sources that, Elon Musk and Trump have decided that Elon will be stepping down in the coming weeks from his current government employee role, and that he'll go back, more to running his businesses. He'll still be in a sort of advisor supporting role. And this was sort of presented as a scoop. And if you scroll down, Evan, you'll sort of see some important context that I probably should have added in the first part of the post. But in 1962, Congress created this sort of role of special and government employees, SGA, which allows the executive branch to bring on employees for specific roles on a temporary basis. So Trump basically gave this designation to Elon, I think in late January, and it's allowed for about 130 days out of a 365-day period. So basically his SGA role was already coming to an end pretty soon in the coming weeks anyways. So this isn't exactly, there you go. This isn't exactly shocking news. It is worth noting that the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, she just posted right before we started this pod. She says, this quote unquote scoop is garbage. Elon Musk and President Trump have both publicly stated that Elon will depart from public service as a special government employee when his incredible work at DOGE is complete. So I think regardless, Tesla investors liked hearing this because there's this notion that he's never at Tesla anymore and he's super distracted and he's busy with DOGE. So with his SGA designation ending soon, and maybe he's ending it a little bit earlier than he otherwise would have, so he can save that last little bit to come back maybe at the end of the year. Because again, you can only stay within 130 days within a 365-day period. Maybe there are ways that Trump and Elon could have figured out how they could bypass that and he could just stay on forever. But I think ultimately Elon's not going to leave the White House. He'll still be a frequent visitor there, I think, regardless. And he'll continue to be Trump's right ear and an advisor, of course. So.
Yeah, it seems like he's using the time as well to make a lot of deep connections across government that could certainly benefit a company that's looking to expand in a heavy regulated space in the coming years. He posted a picture with the head of the CIA, I believe a day or two ago, right? So he's really getting a lot of face time just across the board. Anybody that's actually ever run their own company knows that it's the connections, right, that make these things successful. And that's what seems to be what he's investing in right now. And of course, trying to save people money.
Well, what's interesting about the Elon dynamic with this, though, is this is not new for a business leader in the United States. It's just you don't hear about it or that individual doesn't have an X account that has 250 million followers, or right. they're not addicted to posting on X every 2 hours or every 2 seconds. Like
2 hours right? would be, very light.
Very generous. Yeah. So this is the big thing is like business leaders, CEOs, people with a lot of influence and money and power. They're constantly in trying to gain influence in the government. I think what makes the Elon situation different is that he does it in front of everybody to see. It's kind of like a door that says, "Oh wow, this is how." Like for people to believe that Elon's the only one that is sort of has the ear of the president and is driving influence. It's a very naive thing to think. And this is the United States. This is how it's built. The U.S. government usually partners with a lot of businesses, not in the same way as China, but they try to gather as much feedback from people that have donated or have helped the administration to get into power, and then they try to figure out how to make the country better in their vision. And then the opposite side of the political spectrum is like bad, and that's how democracy works, right? This is how basically democracy works. So I do think that Trump, sort of that leaking, I feel like, and I think what Sawyer said about it's probably moved the timeline up a little bit. I really do think that's the case. I think even though Elon has had a history of being very capable of stopping or like pushing through crazy periods, I think right now with the violence at Tesla dealerships, the violence with Tesla owners, the crazy volatility, all the stuff that's happening with the administration, trying to take a hammer to the whole thing. We have a gigantic tariff announcement when market closes today, which is going to create all kinds of a huge upside or a huge downside for the market. There's just a lot of moving pieces. What's that?
Liberation
Day. Sure.
It's also worth noting that it's probably not a coincidence that this report came out the day after that the candidate that Elon Musk backed in Wisconsin, the judicial candidate, lost. So this is probably a dig at Elon.
100%. So there's politics at play here like crazy. But in the end, with Cybercap coming on in June, with Starship doing its thing, DOGE, there's just a lot of moving plates. And so I think I agree with the notion that Elon probably has moved up his timeline to not disassociate, but sort of move away, step down from DOGE for a bit to refocus back on the companies to make sure that they're going the right direction. Because this year is going to be gigantic for SpaceX and gigantic for Tesla. These are like some of the biggest years in both the company's history, and he's doing DOGE at the same time. So, that's the nice argument. The bad argument is like, hey, you're ruining your companies. Stop doing that thing so you can come back and fix them. That's the other side of that argument.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like there's a certain amount of spin in these stories. They're trying to frame it as, oh, he's getting fired because he's doing such a bad job. When they've said from the beginning, he said, look, DOGE is going to speed run fixing the federal government. And as Sawyer read out, this special government employee designation is really important for certain ethics and conflict of interest rules, right? These conflict of interest rules are really important. You can't come in as an oil executive and then pursue policies that, make the air less clean and are beneficial for oil companies that profits you at the expense of the American people, right? The government has to be working for the people. So Trump, for example,
all the time, by the way, that and pharma and everything, just to point that out.
Totally.
Yeah.
And, Trump, when he got into office, he handed off control of his businesses to his kids. So these conflict of interest rules, divestiture rules, they're very serious. And for someone like Elon Musk, who owns more companies than I have fingers, it's going to be a problem. Divestiture is not really practical.
That's
right?
A wild stat.
So, this 130-day sort of deadline, which, you just sort of do the math. That's 5 months or so. That ends up in May, June. We're in April right now. So in any case, his time is going to be running out as sort of a special government employee. I think he's still going to be an advisor to the president. He's still going to have an influential role. But, this has been kind of a whirlwind. We had the election and people said, okay, well, now maybe this political stuff, he's gotten this guy elected. But then he comes in and he's actually part of the administration. and one of the most visible faces of the administration, he was really getting attacked even more than Trump for some of the things that Doge was doing, right? When you start cutting, it was very brutal. And I think Tesla investors were really kind of looking at this and saying, wow, is this how it's going to be forever? Is this how it's going to be for the next 4 years? When the reality is that was never the plan. I think he is putting the time in that he can to try and solve these issues. But there was always a time limit on how much he could really do within the federal government. And that time is coming to a close naturally, not because they had a falling out or he got fired, but just because of the law. And honestly, I think Tesla investors are going to be excited about it. When you look at a delivery print like today's, you want all hands on deck. And Elon is a key part of that.
I remember when Elon, he bought Twitter and he was super distracted with that for a while. And there was this notion that he wasn't at Tesla during that time as well. And then he sort of came back after his work. It was mostly done, the hard part. And he really tightened things up when he came back at Tesla. They did layoffs, obviously. There was, I think that was the time he laid off the supercharger team, but then he brought some of them back. But there are other things they did in the company to sort of make it more efficient. And I feel like we're about to see that Elon Musk potentially come back, and that, okay, I'm back at Tesla now. What the hell is happening? Let's tighten things up here and get back to growth. So we'll see.
I do want to mention something I just saw on X. It broke through. I reposted this on my profile. Evan, Amit, shout out Amit, by the way. Freaking love that guy. Amit Kukreja on YouTube. Fantastic channel. Go check him out. He's my brother. He's my brown brother from another mother and different ethnicity, but we have similar complexion. Anyway, so if you pull up the post from the press secretary, Caroline Levitt, this scoop, quote unquote, about Elon leaving early or whatever in a few weeks. Scoop is garbage. Elon Musk and President Trump have both publicly stated that Elon will depart from public service as a special government employee when his incredible work at DOGE is complete. So I think this is sort of the White House going back and saying, hey, even though, he's going to leave when he's going to leave, when he's done and his 130 days is up. So, and what was even more interesting is if you go to the stock price, if you pull up the chart, the stock hasn't moved at all. So the notion around sort of Elon leaving early or whatever,
we're up a little.
And that being pulled back hasn't really impacted the stock much. So I am curious. I am curious to see if maybe it's less about Doge and it's more about the market just being comfortable with the AI story more than ever. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I think it's a number of things, but the White House is going to put their own spin on it. The press is going to put their own spin on it.
That's fair.
At the end of the day, the reality is that 130 days are going to come to a close in the coming weeks. And I think the market is digesting that. They're looking at the whole picture. They're looking at what's going to happen into Q2. I mean, we talk about the numbers, but towards the end of the quarter, you definitely saw an inflection as Model Y started ramping. I think the narrative is going to start to change in Q2, and Elon focusing more on Tesla rather than focusing on his limited time in the federal government, I think is going to pay dividends as well. As Sawyer said, he came back, he cut, he focused on, the supercharger team. People screamed that it was the end of the world. Supercharging still going great. The profitability of the company improved. I do think the market is sort of pricing in another moment like that.
There was another really big piece of news that came out this past week. After being sold once from Twitter and turned into X, X has been sold again by Elon Musk. He sold it to Elon Musk. And so, yeah, XAI.
Can you pull up that meme of like Elon shaking Elon's hand and Elon also having his hand on both Elon's?
Dude, Elon bought Twitter twice.
It went so well the first time he decided to do it again.
Yeah, so XAI acquired X in a all-stock deal. This valued X at $33 billion, I believe. XAI at around $80 billion. There were many a meme to be made. My initial conversations with people is that their vision is Elon is not trying to build, 10 to 15 great companies, but rather consolidate that down over time into a few super companies. Very curious to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I mean, from my standpoint, I think that only makes sense if there's, I hate this word, but I'm going to use it. If there's synergies that make sense, right? So with X and XAI, I think that's a very natural fit because the X data is crucial for XAI's training. And that's one. There was one with it was actual Elon. It was so well done. Anyway, so from that standpoint, it makes perfect sense, right? And I would say there's so many great Elon memes. So from that standpoint, it makes perfect sense. The X's long-term value proposition is going to be, it seems like it's going to be much more around the AI portion and probably the financial portion. Those two things are going to be what's going to drive probably 80 to 90% of their earnings. Who knows? Maybe they'll finally figure out video tools for creators. If somebody from X is watching this, somebody please fix your video creation tools. It's so bad. It's so bad. The earning stuff is obscure as hell. I don't even know what makes what money. And it just goes up and down randomly. There's nothing that, okay, anyway, I'm going to get off before I go on a 2-hour long rant on this. But what's even more interesting about that is the combination, and I don't know if I talked about this on this podcast before, but it's becoming increasingly obvious that Tesla should definitely take a stake in XAI. And the reason why is now XAI is going to position itself in a perfect scenario to create an AI framework or an AI service that will be very good at sort of interfacing with a human at an intellectual level. And then what Tesla's doing is they're figuring out how to make an AI that's going to interface with the physical world at an extremely high level. And when you put those two together, you have the perfect recipe for a human or robot. The absolute perfect recipe. And so, for me, Tesla and XAI have a very good marriage. And so to your point, Gav, right? It's if the synergy exists, if there's an opportunity to make a bigger, more powerful thing by combining the two, XAI and Tesla, now that XAI and X are one thing, becomes I think a very obvious play. Maybe take a stake, maybe not necessarily buy out the company, but take a stake in the company. Now, Neuralink, boring company, SpaceX, these companies probably, maybe SpaceX and boring company potentially could make sense to come together. Anyway, but I thought it was very interesting. It makes perfect sense. And I want Tesla to take a stake. As a shareholder, I want Tesla to take a stake on XAI as soon as possible.
Yeah, two things. There was some confusion with Elon's post in that everyone thought this combined entity was worth $80 billion or valued at $80 billion. That's not true. People in the deal that were part of the deal posted publicly that combined the two are valued at 125 billion, less debt. It's 113 billion. And it sounds like the people that owned X stock, Twitter/X stock, were essentially bought out at the price that they got into 2 or so years ago. So not exactly a great return on that, but they now own XAI stock. So maybe they're happy about that. I don't know.
So they had a 20% loss almost, or 15?
No, they didn't really lose anything. They didn't gain anything either because they bought it at a $44 billion valuation, and they Elon just bought it again at a $45 billion. Yeah, 45.
But it was 45 that he bought it at?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I thought it was lower.
No, yeah, this is essentially cleaning up the mess of the 2022 Twitter acquisition. And what he did is amazing here and should probably be studied in business school. He bought Twitter for $44 billion in a leveraged buyout. He took $12 billion worth of debt, which honestly was choking the company. Having to pay for that debt, it wasn't really good for the company. They had to cut a lot of their workforce. The company essentially was viewed as a turd. Nobody wanted to invest. Even the debt banks were worried about it. You had a company that did not look like a hot company. Now they took the data of the company and created a new company, XAI. X got a 25% stake in XAI. In exchange, XAI got to use their data to train Grok, which then became one of the leading AI models. This new company, XAI, well, this isn't a turd like X, this is a sexy new AI company. And well, now the equity valuation is going to grow and grow to a point where it eventually now bought out X. You take all the X investors, get rid of their turd X stock, make it XAI stock. You can now incentivize the employees. You can give them options grants for XAI rather than X. And you can have the growing equity valuation of XAI as they pursue, these AI projects, really carry the debt and carry the financial burden of the company. So honestly, it's a brilliant reshuffling to just bring everything under XAI. X is the data source for XAI. It's also the distribution platform. Grok is distributed through XAI. And now you don't have these confusing questions of, okay, well, is X making money from Premium Plus? Or is XAI making money from Super Grok? It's all just one company. You can hopefully hire some better engineers. Right. Grok has a great mobile app. Hire some great engineers, grant them XAI stock, and have them work on the X platform as well. So hopefully that's a good sign for the company. I also think the all stock deal is sort of just kind of a beautiful and clean way to do the acquisition. No money really changed hands. It's just, hey, let's take your X stock and you now have XAI stock of equivalent value. And you're going to have that going forward. And now these companies are just merged where it makes sense. In terms of, combining it with Tesla, I'm not sure it makes sense at this point. If you put XAI under Tesla, there's going to be a constraint because you don't want to swing Tesla into a loss, right? Yeah. So the amount of investment and spending XAI can do would essentially be constrained by the profit of Tesla, and it would make Tesla look a lot less profitable. So I don't think it's a good move at this time. However, at some point in the future, as XAI becomes a more mature business, as it has revenue and earnings, I think this could actually be a good blueprint for how you execute that type of deal. Right now, XAI is building bigger and bigger clusters. They're able to raise the money they need from the private markets. But at such time that they need to raise more money from public markets, I think a really good way to do that would be for Tesla to do an all stock deal. XAI shareholders get Tesla stock. And if the company's earning money and really has a great AI model, it could be accretive to the business in that the amount of revenue and earnings it adds to Tesla could more than account for any dilution from issuing new shares to acquire XAI. And, then they can share their compute clusters. They can integrate more deeply with Optimus. They've already said they're introducing it in the cars, introducing it in Optimus. So maybe if things go well, that could be a future blueprint to unify these companies more. That would end up with Tesla owning Twitter, which would be a bizarre turn of events. But I think it's a good deal structure for bringing things together where it makes sense. And this might not be the last time we see a deal like this.
Crazy. Well, if capitalism is a game and there was a leaderboard, Elon would be number one.
I think this deal is good for Tesla investors in that it just lowers the risk that Elon would ever need to sell Tesla stock to cover X's $12 billion in debt, which was always it wasn't as big of an overhang as it used to be, but it was always there. So this, to me, eliminates most of the risk.
Well, it just feels like he's doing like all the work that's been going on the last 2 years is to set up a foundation for whatever the next leg is. Like there's so much foundational work happening in the last 24 months everywhere, like from so many places. And then once the threshold is hit, like the chasm is reached, where it's like, okay, now now you just got to let the foundation do its thing and start building on top of it. That it's going to be a very exciting time to follow Musk industry because, Evan was just mentioning, like talk about the XAI acquisition. We talked about human robots. Now they just provided an update of this freaking thing walking around, like a human, I guess. It's like this is the foundational work that's going on. Go ahead and play. Yeah. This is the kind of foundational work that's going on. We're talking about XAI, but like this product right here is going to benefit from XAI's work tremendously because the Tesla Vision system is going to allow it to do this and manipulate the real world. And then you're going to be able to talk to it about anything. And it's going to have perfect knowledge about history, perfect knowledge about current events. It's going to be able to help you think through problems and, answer difficult questions and maybe help you out if you're feeling stuck in something, or maybe it's a friend if you're somebody who's extremely antisocial and you'd want to learn how to be more social, or do other stuff too. I don't even know, right? It's an incredible foundation that's being built that it will literally change the world. And in 10 years time, we're going to look back to 2025 and be like, boy, has everything changed like crazy. And this one person out of many other great people that are working on a lot of difficult things right now, but this one specific person is going to have an outsized influence on what that future is going to look like. And all that work is being laid out right in front of our eyes for the last 24 months among all the noise and all the panic. But it's like, this is where the magic happens. These last 24 months is where all the magic is happening. And if you blink, you're going to miss it.
Bro,
has there been a company that has seen its value skyrocket so quickly? I mean, XAI was founded literally 24 months ago, and now all of a sudden it's worth 125 billion. Crazy.
Sorry for knocking on the table.
I was going to say, Farzad's back on his table banging.
It's such a bad habit. I'm sorry.
We got to put down like felt or something on the table.
Yeah, I got to do something. Yeah. Make my table out of rubber.
It's funny when you were saying it would be a little ironic if Tesla ended up owning Twitter through this middle acquisition, because where did the money come from? Him selling Tesla stock, right? So it'd kind of be a little bit full circle in that moment. And then maybe now that they own XAI, or XAI owns them, maybe now they can train XAI to fix the video interface, Farzad, and all of that, right? Just get the AI on it.
Yeah. It's also interesting because Elon has said that he wants a 25% stake in Tesla to feel that he has decent control over some of the AI and AGI technology they're creating, and that he has significant influence over how that technology is deployed. If you do an acquisition of XAI where they're issuing new Tesla stock and giving it to XAI shareholders, he, as one of the largest shareholders of XAI, could get much closer to that 25% without having to issue him a new compensation plan.
I'd be fascinated to know if that compensation vote that was held last June, like how that would go down today. That'd be interesting.
What do you think?
Same result, in my opinion.
What'd you say?
Same result. Same
I was
result.
asking you what
you think? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
No, I think it'd be lower, but I think it'd still pass. But yeah,
pass pretty tightly. Yeah, really good stuff. Covered a lot. For those that missed it in the beginning, a lot of delivery numbers, insights, updates, thoughts on those. Rolled into a couple other pieces in regards to the stock reaction, XAI, the Politico ad. This is one of our best videos yet. If you haven't gone ahead and watched the ones before these, they're still very pertinent. I think that's one of the beauty to what we're doing here. There's a pretty evergreen content. If you're looking to learn about different topics, make sure that you're subscribed. If you're watching this on YouTube, go, little button, tap it, subscribe. Someone put an edit on the screen right here of the button being clicked.
Can I put out a challenge for our audience?
Yes, please.
If this video hits 50,000 views, I will stop banging the table. Until then, you're out of luck.
Easy. There you go. Everybody, make sure you're sharing it out. Hit that 50,000 number and we'll get some handcuffs or something. Farzad, keep him behind his back. Who knows? We'll make it work. Like the video. Drop a comment below. Ask us questions. Definitely want to start taking some questions from users. Kind of doing mailbag style type items.
I love that.
Got some different thoughts percolating around in there, but we'd love to have that. If you're watching on X, make sure that you are following, sharing out the episodes. Got that little reshare button. Comment below your favorite moments. If you have any names that you want Sawyer to add to his car, you can throw those into the mix. See if he'll get it off breaking. Ideas, it's a pretty good one. But yeah, lots to go over. Quick final thoughts here, Sawyer. Any final thoughts across the board on everything we've been covering?
I think we were in such a hurricane of noise in Q1. I think that's going to start to calm down a little bit heading into Q2, especially if Elon really does, reduce his time at DOGE and in the government, which sounds like he will naturally anyways, because that 130-day window is ending. So I think people are likely going to turn their focus now to June, robotaxis launching, FSD, and the more affordable vehicles, which are supposed to start production this quarter. So we'll see if that's on track. And then Q1 earnings call in about 3 weeks.
Big things coming. Yeah. Earnings season kicks off pretty much 2 weeks from tomorrow with Netflix earnings. And then the following week afterwards, you're going to have Tesla earnings and so many others. So that'll give us a lot of fodder to talk about. Crazy that pretty much our first show on here was Tesla's earnings last quarter. So we're almost through a whole quarter of Tesla. Pretty cool. Farzad, any other comments from yourself today?
Yeah, I think for people that follow Tesla closely, which is something that we cover obviously a lot on this channel, I think the next 3 months are going to be some of the most let's say, chance for explosive coverage of the company, some of the most exciting products, and the products that will define the next 10 years of the company. All of those will be happening somewhere between the next 3 to 9 months. We're going to gain so much insight between FSD launching in Austin in June, the cheaper models for the car, which are going to give a runway for understanding what kind of TAM they're trying to get into total addressable market in the coming years. Then you have the manufacturing of Optimus robot that's supposed to hit 5,000 units this year, and it's going to start doing hopefully some useful stuff in the company. All these things are starting to become real, and people are going to be able to use them outside of the bot, unless you're a Tesla employee, which I'm sure you'll be able to interface with them by the end of this year in some respects. So super exciting time for people that love the technology. I think this is probably going to be Tesla's most exciting year. And then the most interesting thing to track is how the broader markets and how the broader population, now that Tesla has become sort of a household name in a lot of parts of the world because of all the craziness that has happened in the last few months. I'm curious to see what that does for the company's long-term prospects. For someone like myself who's biased, and obviously I don't want this to be investment advice, but I'm very, very excited about this time because amongst all the noise, when we had Jeff Lutz on our podcast a couple of days ago, amongst all the noise, there's a lot of signal. And what we do a good job of on the show is try to separate the noise from the signal, and there's so much signal. It's just the noise is extremely loud right now. So look out for that. And it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'll come over to you in 1 second, Omar, but I would commend you guys for separating noise and signal. I kind of play the role, obviously, of the person that's more on the side of our viewers, right? Like not every single second in the mix with Tesla. And when there's things like Tesla's getting keyed and other pieces like that, and it just seems like this is happening everywhere. I think you guys have done a really good job of reassuring people, whether it's delivery numbers, protesters, whatever it is, what the bigger picture actually is and what's really happening, and not just what you see on, social media. Omar, any final comments from yourself?
Yeah, I think this is going to be the most important year in Tesla's history. They kicked it off with the launch of a new Model Y. That's responsible for, I think, a big hit in delivery numbers. But going forward, looking at the robo-taxi service in June, this is something we've been looking forward to for years that people said was impossible. Based on employees' comments, it sounds like they're going to do it. You look at Optimus, the walking video. You look at, for the first time since 2017, 8 years ago, a new cheapest Tesla model. And I think it couldn't be coming at a better time. This company has a really bright future ahead of it. It's so true what Farzad said. You can't get lost in the noise. I think when we look back at 2025, this is, as Elon said, going to be the start of not just a new chapter, but a whole new book for Tesla.
Yeah, having just spent time the past week in San Francisco, where probably every fourth or fifth car on the road was driverless, it really does seem very feasible to me, the timeline that they're talking about this year. I think the most unique thing is going to be that, every driverless car on the road that I saw when I was in San Francisco, and also shout out San Fran, randomly while walking around, somehow I ended up with a 1-inch nail on the bottom of my shoe. Great city, keeping it very clean. That did happen. Pulled out an inch nail from my shoe. A lot of day walkers out there, if you know what I'm saying. What's it called? But with the actual driverless vehicles, they all look like, they strapped on as many cameras as possible to these things. It does not look like a regular car. You could not pass it for a regular car. Even Waymo.
And not just cameras, lasers, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Cameras,
really
lasers.
Sensor suites, yeah.
They're spinning LiDAR on the back of them. Like, these things do not fit in necessarily to the city. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's their goal, or maybe it's just what they need. But it's going to be amazing to see what really looks more like an everyday car right now, just driving on drive this. And I think that's where people are going to go, whoa, like what's going on there? That's something huge that I'm looking forward to. So pretty cool for me to be around it.
I mean, we've been talking about self-driving for a long time, but this technology's here. The safety benefits are proven. And now we have to scale that up. We have to replace all the manual driving in the world. Pure vision self-driving, which is going to be launching for the first time in June, is going to be a big part of that. So don't forget the big thesis here. I mean, with these kinds of attacks on Tesla, the craziest attacks we've ever seen, it's so easy to get lost in the noise. But for me, my thesis is until most of the cars in the world are electric, until most of the cars in the world are autonomous, these are still the very early days of Tesla's history.
Yeah, the future.
And the cars looking normal. And the cars looking normal is what's going to allow the company to get to 100 to 1,000 times the scale of every other solution. Because, like Sawyer and Omar said, these sensor suites with the freaking nuclear reactors or whatever they have in those cars right now. Okay, it's so expensive, and the method they're using to self-drive, which is heavily dependent on mapping and humans, that is like. It's a, what was it, the Occam razor? What was that? The simple one, right? Like, this is a perfect example of when you go simple and you just go with the bare minimum, it's going to help you win. It's just a bare minimum is a much harder problem to solve, but if you solve it, you win. And that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a little bit different with cars, but, an example maybe is the Meta, the smart glasses that are coming around, and you had like these like crazy looking, Snapchat ones, and it's like nobody ever wore them. And then you had Meta just make these super normal looking Ray-Bans, and now I can wear them anywhere. And
same exact thing.
Thinks for a second, right? It's just a totally different look. And we're humans. We're a little fickle, right? Like we want things to look normal and fit in. And so it does make a big difference. I would agree with you. Perfect. We covered everything extensively. Make sure that you are following, subscribe to the channels. Big things coming on our next episode. Super excited to be working with our first partner. More to come on that as we get into it. We will see you all on the next one. Take care. 50,000 views and no more table banging. You got it.